Welcome to the side sketch of the last. In this module, our outcomes will be to determine the size of your sketch, determine all the key points and reference points on a sketch, understand the proportions of the last, and draw the outlines of the last. The equipment you will need for this module is a 30 centimeter ruler, a pencil, a divider or any other tool to draw arcs with, and A4 paper. We have to determine the size of your sketch. First, we draw a horizontal line on the bottom of the page. The left side will be your toe and the right side will be your heel. We do suggest that these points are 20 centimeters apart because all your measurements in the sketch is either in quarters or fifths, so 20 can be divided easily by these and simplify the process. You are, however, not restricted by this length, and you can do any size sketch you require or want. We are now going to create the bottom of our last and determine our heel height. We measure half our last length from our heel area to determine our joint. We now have a line with a toe, a joint and a heel. The joint is the point on the foot where it bends or flexes and is also the widest part of the foot. So we end up with a line with 3 points: the toe, the joint and the heel. We now take our divider and place the sharp point on the joint and the pencil point on the heel point and scribe upwards towards the top of the page until we end up with a arc around the joint. It must be noted at this stage that the joint is the center of the arc, and the arc is always the same distance from the joint on all its points. This arc is the guide to where the heel will be as the heel height increases. This is where the heel will sit on a low heel and on a higher heel, and as the heel goes higher, the heel moves closer to the joint until we reach the maximum of approximately 110 millimeter heel. And as it goes down, it moves further away from the joint. The heel moves further away from the joint until in the low position it is at the maximum distance from the joint. For purposes of this module, we are going to use a low heel of approximately 10 millimeters, and we draw a vertical line upwards through this point, indicating our heel height. The point where our line crosses the arc is the heel height point, and the blue line below the arc will indicate the heel height. So you should now have this before we continue. The next section is to determine the back height of the last. From our heel height marker, we measure vertically up 1/5 of our total last length and make a mark. If you used a 20 centimeter last, this measurement would be 4 centimeters. We then join this mark with the imaginary or very light line to the toe. On this line, we determine the halfway mark between this new point and the heel curve and make a mark on this point. This halfway mark is the back height marker. So you will end up with 3 important points to create the base or bottom of your sketch, namely the toe, the joint, heel height, or also sometimes referred to as the center back feather edge, and the back height. Drawing the bottom of the last. Draw a relaxed curve extending from your seat area towards the joint point. This curve on a low heel last curves upwards ever so slightly, or higher heels it becomes even more exaggerated. Extend the back lines with an ever so slight downward curve to the toe. Draw a curve from the heel height marker through the back height marker. This line has an exaggerated curve outwards on the bottom, and straightens out at the back height marker until we end up with a finished base. Now we have to determine the most important point on the last. This is the vamp point. The vamp point sits on top of the last, on the widest point of the last, called the girth line. We start by placing our compass point on the back height and the pencil on the joint line, and scribe upwards to a little more than a quarter last length away from the joint. This is the girth line. The vamp point will lie on this line or arc. It is important to notice that the vamp point will therefore always be the same distance from the back height as the joint is from the back height. This is irrespective of how high the heel is. Next we open our compass a quarter last length and place it on the joint, and scribe an arc upwards towards the previous line or girth line. Where they intersect is the vamp point. It is now important again to notice that the vamp point sits the same distance as the joint from the back height as previously mentioned, and it sits a quarter of the last length from the joint. This creates a triangle between the joint, vamp point and back height where the two long sides are always the same. Now we're going to create the front side or top side of the last. Make a mark on the shank curve, a quarter distance from the back. Note that this mark is on the curve and not on the straight line. Draw a vertical line from the base through this point. From the curve, measure up half last length and make a mark. This is merely a temporary reference point to determine the angle of the cone of the last. We now join the toe with the vamp point and the vamp point to the new reference point with light lines. Next we draw a short line 90 degrees to the front base of the toe. This is the angle our toe will be to the base. It is very rare circumstances that this will not be the case. Then we make a mark halfway between the toe and the vamp point. Through this point we draw a line at a slight angle down towards the toe. This line determines the top of the vamp of the last. Now we start our sketch, starting at the toe, going up 90 degrees along the line and curving back according to the toe shape we require and onto the vamp line. Next we curve the line with a dip on the vamp flowing outwards and upwards through the vamp point. This line automatically flows into an outward curve resulting in the cone. This is the point where most people go wrong, as they tend to dip the cone inwards. We now draw a line from approximately 1/3 our back height, higher than our back height, and parallel to the seat area. We now draw a line intersecting our cone at 90 degrees, resulting in our finished sketch.